So, welcome to Study Chess with me. And this is going to be our endgame studying session using the classic work Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual. Now, I have been studying it a little bit, honestly. I'm still at the pawn chapter, which is the first chapter. But let's be frank, Dvoretsky is great, but his exercises are tough. I mean, I have gotten egg in my face on pretty much every solution except for one, which was actually illustrated in a video a few months back. Um, it was actually the only one that I really got the solution from end to end correctly. Every other one is basically I got some of the ideas right or whatever, but some of his solutions require you to analyze multiple lines 10, 15 moves deep. Really. I don't mean just like white one move, black one move, and so forth. I mean, really deep. And they're tough, but to be fair, they're also brilliant. I don't just mean because he chose, fantastic studies. Of course he does. This is Dvoretsky after all. But also because of how they fit in with the lessons of the day. So, really, the only advice I have to give to you and to myself, honestly, because it's now become really apparent, is that if I really pay close attention to the ideas that he's presenting in his lessons, you will see these lessons appear in the exercises. Absolutely. So, in any case, the next exercise which I saw is going to be by Grigoriev. It's a study. Very famous author of pawn endgame studies, as I recall. And presumably it's going to be about the themes of opposition, distant opposition, and whatnot. So let's get to it. So this is the study. As you can see, it's a relatively simple pawn endgame. And when I say simple, that's very much tongue in cheek. A lot of these studies tend to be really fascinating because, for all of their simplicity, the solutions are anything but simple, at least for us humans. Computers would just go snap their fingers and it's done, of course. So, all studies are basically whites to play. And in this case, I'm going to assume white to play and win. But sometimes, because Dvoretsky doesn't always tell you what the goal is, it can be to draw as well. And if during my analysis, and subsequently if you also analyze it yourself, you find that white is losing nonstop, then the goal will be obviously to draw, presumably. In any case, let's get to it. Okay, so I have spent a lot of time studying this position, and I need to say that I'm throwing in the towel. I'm sorry. I really, really tried. I have analyzed a lot of variants, and I can't seem to make any of them work. If white is supposed to win this, it's eluding me. I will show you what I've seen first, and then let's take a look at the solution by Dvoretsky. Now, a quick comment on the change of the lighting, of course. I started this analysis when it was end of the afternoon, 5 o'clock ish, and it started to get dark really, really fast. So by the time I realized it, the whole thing had gotten just pitch black, which is fine if I'm analyzing on a laptop, but not so good for a video. So I turned on the light, fixed the lighting and whatever, and yeah, so here we are. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this. So the first things I did were obviously analyze these two pawns and how they come into play. There are lots of ways they come into play. Grigoriev is a brilliant, one of the most famous endgame study composers. This is a composition. And of course, chosen by Dvoretsky because it fits the theme of the class and, of course, or the lesson. And it's going to make your mind real, which it certainly did mine. I spent at least 30 minutes studying this position. So it really wasn't for lack of trying. I'm a very, very, very stubborn analyst. I will try to make things work. I will try to find the solutions on my own. But that doesn't mean you're going to succeed. And in this particular case, and honestly, it wouldn't be the first time with Dvoretsky, I did not. But I gave it my best. Well, live and learn. It's okay. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of variants before we go to the solution, what I saw. So the first thing I tried, of course, was the most obvious king a6. So I moved my king forward, king b8. So, of course, we can always try f4, but one thing at a time. b6. Now, the most obvious thing here is that black cannot take this pawn because it's just lost. You take, and black can do whatever he wants. White will just come over, pick up the pawn, get the extra tempo, pawn will queen, end of game. Okay, so let's go back. But black doesn't have to play it that way. Black can play king c8. Fair enough. And here we have a few little tricks. And here is actually where we're going to begin to see some of the subtleties of that f5 pawn and that g2 pawn. So if white plays b7 check. Now, just quick parentheses. Obviously, taking on c7 won't work. I really just don't see how this is going to do anything. And yeah, you can advance the pawn or not, it doesn't matter. And if you play g3 right now on your own, well, black will do it for you. And who cares? It'll just come around. Oops. And it's not the end of the world. So, yeah. Okay, so b7 seems to be the only real choice here. So I play b7 check. King b8, only move. And of course, now we have a little problem with white. We cannot play king b5 because the pawn is hanging. So we're forced to play g3 on our own. Black plays c5, king b5, king takes, king here. And here you would seem that, there's no way that black is going to save this. This is where those little tricks come in. So if you play here, black doesn't play king d7 and lose. Black plays f4. Now white has no choice. White has to take. So you take, king d7, king e5, king e7, king f5, king f7, and black has the opposition. It's a draw. Okay. So this is an illustration of the problem with that particular line. This particular, let's say, attempt. And I tried other things. For example, let's try, whoops. King b5, doesn't matter. King b7, and really I don't see what you have here, what you've accomplished. Sorry, king b5, king takes. Here, my bad, little distraction. And again, nothing special is going on here. Black should be fine. So then I tried the opposite. I tried moving away. And I'm guessing that's probably the solution. One of these lines has to be, honestly. I'm just not figuring out what the exact move order is, or how to gain that permanent, tricky opposition. Well, okay. So I didn't stop here. I decided to go backwards. I tried to go for the distant opposition. Very reasonable. It's been one of the key themes of these lessons by Dvoretsky in the pawn endgames. So I thought, once I gave up on that and I looked at this, I thought, well, that must be the solution. All right. But I can't make it work. Much as I've tried. I really, really, really have tried. But yeah. So let's just say king b7. Now, if you decide to try to be very tricky and keep the distant opposition, nothing much happens, honestly. King b4. King b3, king b6. You really have no choice. You have to come here. And yeah, play it this way. And then what? And I can't really run for the f4 pawn. And I can't seem to force my way to the c pawn. Or let's say to an advantageous position where I can push this. So yeah, this has been basically my stumbling block. Darn. And I really, really, really tried. I'm going to probably be smacking my forehead when I press F10 and see what the solution is, but okay. But, you know, we've tried. So this is now the solution. You can't see it. You can only see the board. But the notation, which in the previous one was basically blank to allow me to study it, in the second, let's say, entry into the database of this particular book, ebook, whatever, I have the full solution in front of me. And yeah, I was close. I missed something. Well, obviously. Okay, so I didn't show you this variation, but I had actually seen it. I just didn't get across the line properly. So the solution is king a6. Okay. And he says, of course, not b6. King b8. Fair enough. We got that right. g3. I had actually seen this. And I had actually seen that king a8 was forced because king c8. Oops, sorry. King c8 is losing. King a7, king a8, and yeah, no. Nothing to say there. Fine. So the question is, after king a8, what do you do? b6. Fair enough. King b8. I saw that too. And I kept going back to king c8. That was my mistake. King b5. Okay. King b7. And here apparently is where I missed it. Yeah. And here, white has seized the opposition, and therefore the f4 sacrifice is useless. Okay. We saw it, and we kept looking at that, and I just immediately, in my mind, kept reverting back to the f4 sacrifice works and saves the day. And it doesn't this time. I missed that little subtlety. Well, live and learn. Okay, so this is the next exercise in Dvoretsky's exercise section on the pawn endgames, or opposition more specifically, because as you can see, there are no pawns. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really cheat so much as not understand what was being asked of me. So I skipped to the solution to try to understand. I do now, but unfortunately, I've seen the solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the instructions. I will explain to you what is being asked in case you, like me, don't get it. And you can pause the video and try to solve it on your own before proceeding to the solution, which is going to come very soon. So the instructions here say, mate black with just one mating move by the rook. And I looked at this and I thought, what? And I just stared at it and it didn't make any sense to me. And basically what's being asked of you here is the rook is on c1, as you can see here. Okay. And the rook is not to move at all. You're basically going to be trying to maneuver your king in such a position so that black cannot do anything. And your final move, your only move with the rook, is to deliver mate. So obviously you're going to be doing some opposition tricks here with white in order to force black into a8, presumably, or someplace similar, and which the last move will be mate with the rook. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to now be looking at the solution and sharing it with you. And if you'd like to put the video on pause and try to solve this on your own first, please do so. Here's the solution given by Dvoretsky. The white king must come closer to the black one, maintaining the opposition. Fair enough. And when this is impossible to outflank along the c-file, in fact, all this is an algorithm we already know, a transformation of a distant opposition into a close one. So the solution is king a2, king b8, king b2, king a8, king c3, aha. As we can see, the king will not be able to escape that small prison. King b7, king b3, king a7, king c4, king b8, king b4. As we can see, we have that distant opposition here. King a8, king c5, king b7, king b5, king a7, king c6, king b8, king b6, king a8, and of course, rook c8 mate. Brilliant. And, well, I loved it, honestly, and I'll be looking at it more closely after. But in the meantime, thank you for joining me in the study session. I hope you enjoyed it and was able to learn something from it. I certainly did. And in the next study session, we'll be returning to tactics and continue our progress.